Hey, what's up, guys? It's Rick with the Digital Divide, and today I want to talk about comic book collecting, specifically some headaches and frustrations and pet peeves of mine when it comes to collecting modern comics. My first gripe really shouldn't be an issue, but it comes down to what makes a first appearance a first appearance. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, that's simple. The first appearance of a character is the first time that they appear in a comic book, but that's not always the case. And here's a good example. Amazing Spider-Man number 360. This is the actual first appearance of Carnage. And I'll show you here in a second. Let me flip through the pages. I can't remember what page he's on, but this is the comic book that I believe he truly first appears in. He's wearing the red symbiote suit and everything. So here it is. This poor guy's walking up the stairs. Carnage attacks him and kills him. You can see that this is Carnage. He's in his full red symbiote suit, and he even has lines of dialogue where he says specifically, "You're going to be my first victim, the first victim of Carnage." So that is the first appearance of Carnage, but for some reason, this book is the one that gets credit for it. You might be thinking to yourself, why? Well, it's simple. It has a cooler cover, and that's really all there is to it. It's a more prominent, more dramatic cover, and collectors like that. And this is really one of the only hobbies on Earth where the collectors can collectively get together and say, we're going to make this book more valuable because it has a cooler cover. The Incredible Hulk 180 is another prime example of that. This is the first time that Wolverine appears in comic books. This is his first appearance. You can see here on the right, this is the first image. He actually has speaking dialogue, and he says, "I am the Wolverine," and it's right there front and center. But Hulk 181 gets the credit for being the bigger book, and why is that? It's because it has a cooler cover. He's right there front and center, and it says, "And now, the Wolverine." So it's just a much more dramatic and much more impressive looking first appearance. Grading companies like CGC and CBCS used to side with collectors, so whatever they decided collectively was the more important book would get the credit for being the first appearance, but they're starting to crack down on that. For example, this is XMen Annual number 14. This is the first time that Gambit actually appears in comic books. And I'll show you a little bit of that here, and kind of where the logic comes from. I think it's 15. I want to say he's on page 15. Some really nice artwork in here, by the way, guys. So here it is, page 15 on the right. You can see Gambit right there, hiding behind the bushes. His name is actually spoken. There he is again in another panel. Here he is again in another panel. Here's Cable, so we'll flip through. He's in multiple panels. Here he is again on the right up here, where you can clearly see him, and he's not really saying anything or doing much, but he's there. If we flip over, I think he's actually in a couple additional panels. I can't remember which ones, though. There he is. Okay, there he is again, and then here he is one more time. And I get it. He's not doing much. He's not saying much. So this is a horrible first appearance, but that's on the fault of the comic book artists and the writers. To introduce him this way is just kind of lame. So this is the book that people consider his actual first appearance, and again, it has a much better cover. He's prominently displayed on the cover. It says on the bottom, "Enter the mutant called Gambit." So this was really made to be his introduction. So a lot of grading companies are going back and retconning this and saying, you know what, no, this is his first appearance, and that's being displayed on the label these days, which is a good sign in my opinion. Another huge issue that I have with collecting these days is the scalpers or the speculators. There's a whole market of people that really don't even read comic books. They just buy them in the hopes that someday they'll be worth a lot of money. A good example is Ultimate Spider-Man number 1. This book has really no significance. It's not a real key. There's no first appearance of any character or any place or anything. It's got a mediocre cover in my opinion. The cover's kind of ugly, and it has a super high print run, so it's not rare at all. It's not even the first Ultimate Spider-Man comic book. There was another one that came out before this, so it's the second one. But for some reason, speculators decided, we're going to make this book a thing. We're going to make it worth money. And they're doing this in an artificial way that really drives me nuts. And this happens all the time. So I'll give you an example, and I'm making this number up. Let's just say, for example, that Marvel printed 50,000 copies of the first print of this book. And let's say there was maybe 30 or 40,000 people that were actually interested in picking it up and reading it. supply meets demand, everything's great. But what happens is the speculators go in on day one, they buy every single issue of this comic book because they've decided they want to make it a thing. So when you go to pick it up at the store, all of a sudden it's sold out. And this gives you the perception that everyone's buying this book, that it's hard to find. I got to pick it up somewhere. But the problem is that now the only place you can buy a copy is on eBay from these scalpers for ridiculous prices. If we hop on eBay here, they're going for like $60, upwards to $100 for a comic book that's worth about $4. So in about 2 to 3 months, the market is going to get flooded with tens of thousands of 9.8 copies of this book. Of course they're going to be 9.8s because they're brand new. And when that happens, the market is going to plummet. The value of this book is going to drop significantly. And there's going to be thousands of pissed off people that overpaid for a book based on the speculators market. But I don't want to rant all day. That's going to really do it for me today, guys. As always, let me know what you think in the comic books below and if you agree with any of these points. As always, thanks for watching.